Good evening, everyone. It's happy Sunday to you. It is January 29th, 2017. It's about 5:30 on Sunday evening. I want to share with you the homily that I offered to the folks. We began Catholic Schools Week today, and it goes through the week. And today, on the fourth Sunday of Ordinary Time, we had the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount of Jesus, chapter 5, verses 1 to 12. That's the gospel that I'll be preaching on, and it's actually the Beatitudes that we all know very familiar. So, one thing I did in the homily is that I asked the parents instead of children. Sometimes when I preach at school masses, I have 3 a week at 3 sites each week, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I like to ask students questions, and many times their answers to the questions are pretty insightful and also sometimes pretty funny. And today at the masses, I actually flipped the tables. I turned the tables. Instead of asking students questions, I actually asked the parents questions. And this was the question that I asked the parents. What are the values and the virtues that you want your children to grow up with? What do you want them to be when they become adults? What type of people do you want them to be? And some of the parents answered honesty, responsible, trustworthy, kind, faithful people. Someone said faith. And actually in all 4 of the masses, those were the exact same responses that all the parents gave. And then I asked this question. Do you have to be a Christian to be responsible, to be kind, to be trustworthy, to be a person of faith, to be a person of courage? Do you really have to be Christian to do all those? You can be a faithful Jew, a trustworthy Muslim. You can be an honest atheist. What makes it distinctively Christian? And that's where today's gospel comes into it, because Jesus begins his great teaching of the gospel with the Beatitudes. And sometimes we hear them so often, we have so many songs that are based on them, that we can become indifferent to really what the Beatitudes are really trying to say, and just how radical and demanding they really are if we live them. So to switch it up, I want to read you another translation of the Beatitudes that may help you open up even more to what the Beatitudes are actually getting at. So here's the Good News Bible translation. Here's their version of the Beatitudes. Jesus saw the crowds and went up a mountain where he sat down. His disciples gathered around him, and he began to teach them. Happy are those who know they are spiritually poor. The kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Happy are those who mourn, God will comfort them. Happy are those who are humble, they will receive what God has promised. Happy are those whose greatest desire is to do what God requires. God will satisfy them fully. Happy are those who are merciful to others. God will be merciful to them. Happy are the pure in heart, they will see God. Happy are those who work for peace. God will call them his children. Happy are those who are persecuted because they do what God requires. The kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Happy are you when people insult you and persecute you and tell all kinds of evil lies against you because you are my followers. Be happy and glad, for a great reward is kept for you in heaven. That's a very different translation than the one that we heard in the lectionary, if you look it up on usccb.org. And the main difference is the word that our Bible uses to say blessed is the same word that means happy. And this gets at something about Jesus as he begins his public ministry and his preaching, is that he doesn't start with the law, he doesn't start with rules, he doesn't start with obligations. He starts with the question, do you want to be happy in your life? Do you want fulfillment and lasting happiness in life? And everyone who's a human being, who has a heart and two lungs and a brain, would all say, yes, I want to be happy. We never want to be sad. And this brings up the Beatitudes. Jesus' Beatitudes are the way to happiness. Jesus says, if you want to be happy, if you want lasting fulfillment, live these Beatitudes in me and follow me. But what does it really mean? And today I just want to briefly go through the virtues of the Beatitudes. And here are the ones that, as I've reflected on them, there's probably other ways to look at them, but here's how it struck me as I read those two versions of the Beatitudes. And here are the virtues. The first virtue of the Beatitudes is this: radical dependence on God. Do we teach that to our children? That we are to be utterly dependent upon God for everything. That everything is a gift from Him. Do we teach that to our children? 2, hearts that are bothered by evil and hardness of heart. Do we teach our children to be outraged, to be bothered when they see evil in the world, injustice in the world? Do we have children with hearts that are sensitive when evil happens to others? Number 3, humility. We're to never seek the limelight of life, but to accept when the limelight comes. Never to put ourselves forward first. The humble inherit the land. Number 4, desiring always to do what is pleasing to God. That is what gives us happiness. Do we teach that virtue? Do we witness to that virtue? That what is pleasing to God is what makes us ultimately happy. Number 5, being merciful so that we can receive mercy. Do we teach that forgiveness and reconciliation and letting go of resentments and not holding grudges is the way to happiness as well? Number 6, chastity. The belief that no one should ever be used for the pleasure of another. Are we pure in heart? For those are the ones who see God. Do we teach that to our children? Do we witness that for our children? Number 7, followers of Jesus who are willing to suffer for the sake of what is right. Do we teach our children that because we are followers of Jesus, we will from time to time have to face opposition, have to face suffering, have to face difficulty because we're holding on to the goodness of what Jesus has shown us in life? That leads us to happiness, a happiness that's deeper than our feelings. And lastly, number 8, followers of Jesus who see their love for Jesus as more important than their reputation and their honor. Do we teach the holding of what other people think about us as more important than what Jesus will think about our actions and our lives? When you put the Beatitudes in that light, they become the most challenging but the most life-giving virtues to live for in life. That's why they are the beginning of the new law of the gospel, the new reign of grace, the new teaching of the new Moses who offers us the way to beatitude, the way to happiness. So let's pray for that grace to live these, to ponder these anew, to never get used to them. Not for them being part of a favorite song or they're just very poetic, but they are literally Jesus overturning the tables of what happiness seems to be to offer us the greatest happiness of living in His gospel. May we do that generously, may we recommit it, and may we pass it on to our next generation. Thanks for listening. I'm back on the horse here for Sunday homilies. I hope you listen to it. I hope you share it with others if you find it beneficial. It's one-click evangelization. It's very easy on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube itself to share the videos that I share with all of you. If you think it is helping you spiritually, please pass on the word. It could really change the things that we're seeing on social media that is so negative and so divisive. Let's be instruments of justice. Let's be instruments of peace and unity as well. May God bless you and have a good week. God bless our Catholic schools. Have a good Catholic schools week, and we'll see you next weekend on Super Bowl weekend. Bye-bye.